Hello, I'm Dave and this is Logan, out once again for a walk in the countryside. Thanks for joining us. Now today we're at the village of WILDHERN in Hampshire. It's located about 3.5 miles north of Andover in the parish of Tangley, which is made up of 3 villages, Tangley, WILDHERN and Hatherden, and a couple of smaller hamlets as well. And we're going to be walking a roughly 5-mile circular route. We'll have a wander through WILDHERN itself before heading east towards the edge of Blagden Copse, then west to Tangley before returning to the village along an old Roman road. And hopefully there'll be lots of interesting things to see as we go. I say hopefully. You can probably tell there's a very thick mist or fog at the moment. I'm filming right at the beginning of March. There was a really hard frost last night, but the sun is up there somewhere, so fingers crossed that'll be coming out soon. Otherwise, it could be a bit of a dark walk. Anyway, should be perfect conditions for walking. Do come along with us. Well, I've parked my car at the village hall and recreation ground, which is on the sort of western end of the village. You can probably see the village hall behind me. I think it was rebuilt in 1959. The name WILDHERN derives from wild corner, I think. Okay, well, let's go for a little wander before we head out into the countryside. Now, the first thing we're going to have a look at in the village is something you have to keep your eyes peeled for. So just through, you can see in the mist there, that's the recreation ground. So this is on the sort of western side of the village. You need to look out for a place called Woodside Lodge, and there's a little path that comes off the road, and this is going to take us to somewhere called Tom's Wood. But say there's no actual sign from the road to say that it's here. Ah yes, here we go. Tom's Wood, Woodland Trust. So we just need to head along this little footpath through here. And this is Tom's Wood, very much a hidden gem, and it was donated to the Woodland Trust in 2002, named after Thomas or Tom Ware, who created the wood himself by planting around about 700 trees on a couple of fields next to where he lived between 1981 and 1993. Tom died in 1998. So the actual entrance is at the northeast corner of the wood, and there's about 400 yards of permissive circular path for the public. There's no gate or stile. And I was reading that Tom planted his first tree on the 10th of February 1981. Originally it was just going to be beech trees here, but it developed with oak and ash amongst other species of tree, and it covers around about 2.8 acres. And if it would have been planted as a forestry plantation, it would have been something like 2,000 trees instead of 700. And the track actually took something like 4 winters to make. But it really is a very peaceful and idyllic little part of the village. Well, I tell you, I could have stayed in that Tom's Wood for ages. It was so tranquil in there. Okay, so We're at the sort of middle of the village now, and before we sort of head out into the countryside, there's a little footpath sign behind me. I'm going to head south just to have a look at some of the quite gorgeous houses here. In fact, you can probably just see behind me the old chapel, and it's the Wildhern Primitive Methodist Chapel. Now, although there was a Methodist group in the village recorded in 1818, the chapel was built here in 1872, but it was then rebuilt in 1880 after a fire. I think it was used as a village hall at some stage until the present one was built, and then used as a storeroom, I'm not sure, but it closed in 2007 and is now a residential house. Timber framed with brick infill and a thatched roof. Walnut cottage. Well, this is the southern end of the village, and hopefully you can see this because the sun is very low this time of year. But this gorgeous house, thatched, painted white, used to be a pub, the Plough Inn. And well, it was a beer house that shows on an 1895 map, and I think it was still running as a pub until, well, 1940s, 1950s, not 100% sure. There were a fair few pubs around these parts, as the village is on an ancient drovers route. Sheep drovers stopped off here before their final destination, the Way Hill Fair, which was one of England's most important medieval fairs, and indeed one of the oldest. That's located to the west of Andover. But there are some pubs open in the area. The Hare and Hounds pub to the south at the bottom of this road. And then there's the old Bell and Crown to the west, and the Fox Inn, which we may see later on. And just on the other side of the road, another magnificent house, Oak Tree House, looking quite splendid in the morning sunshine. Well, we can only see the roof of this one on the other side of that yew hedge. And what's that on the top up there? Is that a duck? I think it is. Oh, I love this cottage with the roses creeping up the side, and Logan hasn't spotted, but there is a cat on the top. Some birds sunbathing on the top of the thatched roof up there. Another beautiful cottage with Flint, the covey. Oh, what a pretty village Wildhern is. Right, well, we're now going to head out into the countryside, and I've picked up a footpath that basically heads eastwards. You pick it up basically opposite the chapel at the sort of northern end of the village. I'm pleased to say the mist is gradually lifting and the sun is beginning to make an appearance. So we're now on a section of the Brenda Parker Way, which is a 78-mile long distance path that winds its way from Andover to Aldershot. It was created in 2011 by the North Hampshire Down Ramblers in memory of Brenda Parker, who died in 2008. Brenda was a prominent member of the group. She wrote a number of local walking books in the area, and also the waymark signs, the chaffinch. Brenda was very interested in birds. Right, we need to kick on. Now, I'm expecting a fair bit of mud on this route because we've had a lot of rain recently. I was reading yesterday that February was one of the wettest months on record. But we should be okay because a fair part of the walk actually is going to be on a country road, and I've deliberately chosen this walk because of that. Let's kick on. Now, I don't know if this is coming across on the camera or not, but it really is quite a a sort of spooky scene in front of me as the mist or fog is gradually beginning to disappear and the outlines of trees and hedges slowly coming into view. And the sort of area of stubble in front of me is now nice and clear, and there's definitely blue sky above. Well, although the sun is out, it's still only about 2 or 3 degrees, so I'm going to keep Logan's little fleece on for a little bit longer. I'm sort of wrapping him cotton wool at the moment because in 7 days' time he's going to Crufts for the last time. He'll be retiring from the show ring because he's 8 years old now, so it's going to be quite an emotional day. And now it's beginning to clear, starting to get some quite beautiful scenic views. Well, ignore the telegraph poles, and looks like there's some sort of plantation conifers over on the right there. Well, this is as far east as we're going to go. In front of me here is Doles Farm, or what remains of it. Looks as though the house is boarded up. And a lovely old plough in front of it as well. So we're now going to start heading in a sort of northerly direction. Behind the farm there you can see a copse, that's Blagden Copse, and we're going to keep that on our right. So this is Blagden Copse on my right here, and it may have been a remnant of a much larger forest. There's certainly been trees here for centuries, but much of the present woodland was replanted relatively recently. Now, if you look at an Ordnance Survey map, you'll see a couple of earthworks. One is a sort of square-shaped Iron Age enclosure with a ditch and bank, but I don't know too much about it, to be honest, but we're not going to be able to explore it anyway because I think it's on private land, but I'll just mention it that it is in there somewhere. A little pit stop as we're going uphill, still with Blagden Copse on our right, but now that it's so clear, getting some quite stunning views. This must be over to the west. A real crisp, sort of late winter day, I'd describe it. You know, it's getting quite warm now. So we've finished our uphill bit. We've left Blagden Copse in a little place called Pill Heath. And now we start heading westwards. And we're going to follow a little road. I think it's going to be a quiet road. To be honest, it wasn't too muddy, by the way, by the copse. I've seen a lot worse. But at least keeping on the road, we're going to have a fairly firm footing. Now, as far as I can see, the only settlement at Pill Heath is this quite gorgeous house, which sort of sits in a little triangle between 3 roads. So that's the road we're going to be following. Let's see, there's a sign to the Fox Inn. Intriguing. Well, it looks like there is another little building at Pill Heath in the triangle. Quite exquisite, thatched cottage with brick and flint infill. Beautiful. Well, as we're making our way along this quiet country lane, keep stopping from time to time just to take in some of these views. So this is looking over to the sort of west, southwest, I suppose, and the fields beginning to have a little greenness to them as the crops, little shoots beginning to poke through. But a lot of the trees, of course, yet to have any leaves on them. Pretty couple of cottages, and look at the view that they have from their front of their house. Quite spectacular, isn't it? Well, we're now just approaching our next little settlement, Tangley, which back in 1174 was recorded as Tangalia, which I think means woodland clearing between spits of land. I'm not sure. Now, just as we come into Tangley, that footpath or restricted byway sign there, that's actually our homeward leg, which is going to take us on a Roman road. But before we go on that, we're going to do quite a big detour. We've got quite a few things to explore. Oh, what an enchanting church. It's the Church of St Thomas of Canterbury here at Tangley. And there was a Christian chapel on the site more than 800 years ago. 3 sarsen stones in the churchyard suggest earlier pagan worship here. But a chapel here was consecrated in the 1300s, but it still depended on a mother church some way to the northeast of here. But the church here was effectively rebuilt in 1875, and it's a single cell with a small apse built on the foundations of the previous one. It's got a north transept, north vestry and a south porch. The west tower was added in 1898. And I think it's got 6 bells, one of which dates to 1522. Right, let's have a little peep inside. Now, I know I always say this, I can't find the lights and it is dark, but it is very dark. But I want to show you this because this is a lead font, and I think it's one of just 38 lead fonts in the country. The wooden base, I think, is 20th century. And the bell tower, yes, 6 sallies, so definitely 6 bells. And a beautiful stained glass window at the far end. And then just heading towards the altar. So you've got this apse, which is quite sweet, really, right at the end. And if you can see how tiny it is. But I love the roof of it, and the windows are almost Saxon style, aren't they? I wonder if some of these windows were retained from an earlier church. I don't know. And just next to the church is the old school. It was opened in 1870. I'm not sure when it closed, but as you can see, it's a private residence these days. Now, just to the west of the church, a little bit further on in Tangley, if you look at a very old map, there was once 2 pubs. And they were very close to each other. There was the 5 Bells Inn, which closed a long time ago, and the Cricketers Arms, which I think has only recently been closed, and I think for good. And they were here very much for the same reason for, the plough being here back at WILDHERN. But all is not lost, because there is still one pub open just to the south. We're going to go through a little bit of woodland, and then we can check it out. Well, we've left the church and are heading southwards through the Fox Plantation, which was a bit of woodland planted up 150, 200 years ago. I think it first appeared on a map in 1873, and it was originally planted up with oak, beech and ash. And this is our next destination, the Fox Inn, which I'm delighted to say is open. I think it's closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, but today's a Sunday. And as we're passing by, we ought to pop in, purely for research purposes, of course, for the video. Well, here we are at the Fox Inn, right by the fire, with of course a pint of fox. Lovely. I've just ordered some soup, but Logan's got his treat as well. I'll tell you what, this is rather nice actually. Oh yes, thumbs up from me. Well, that was a very pleasant pit stop. The food they do here is Thai food, and the soup was delicious, and the pint was pretty good as well. Okay, well, we're now going to sort of not quite double back on ourselves, but head back north again to pick up a Roman road, and that'll take us back to the village. We're very much on the homeward leg now. Oh, isn't that beautiful? I love the way they've sort of whitewashed over the flint, but left the brick exposed, and then the thatch on top. That's so well presented. It's quite lovely. Well, this last section is a dead straight route. It's a Roman road, and I think it runs all the way from Winchester in the sort of southeast all the way up to Cirencester in the northwest. I'm not 100% sure, but this little section I think is just called Hungerford Lane. Well, a little bit of a pit stop as we're heading back along this old Roman road. A few clouds beginning to appear now, but it is that time of year, and there won't be that many more hours of sunlight anyway, but it'll give you a rough idea of some of the landscape views. Very much your rolling Hampshire countryside, isn't it? Well, this is where we say goodbye to the Roman road that carries on further to the south. And we're now going to start heading eastwards. It'll take us back to the car and to the village by this delightful little pond here. And it appears on a very old map. And it's great that it's still here. I guess it was an important part of the route here, because this is probably a crossing point, not only the Roman road, but perhaps an old ancient drover's route as well. Well, folks, we've come to the end of our walk. We've just got a few yards to go and then we'll be back to the car. What a beautiful place to end, right by a pond. We hope you enjoyed the walk. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up and a like, and do leave a comment, and do check out our Facebook page, Dave's Countryside Walks. So until we meet again, thanks for watching, and cheerio. Good boy.